it goes without saying that this tutorial is going to cover really quite a serious topic. So with that in mind, I've just featured up here in green. If you're worried about yourself, you should see your GP. So if any of the themes we're going to cover here concern you and worry you about your own health condition, you should seek help from your general practitioner doctor, your local doctor. Also, if you're worried for someone else, you need to tell them I'll rephrase that. If you're worried for someone else, you could consider telling that person you're concerned in a non-judgmental way, and then you could seek help from a responsible adult, and specifically, you might consider seeking help from a teacher. Teachers and schools are trained to help people get the support they need, or to be able to see a situation compassionately and hopefully objectively and support people. Now, with that understood, let's talk about eating disorders. So this is what they are. They're mental health conditions where individuals use the control of food, and I think that's an interesting term, isn't it? The control of food, and they're controlling that food so that they can cope with something that's happening to them, feeling stress, anxiety, a difficult situation, a problem that they're not being able to solve, some kind of really negative relationship. It might be that it's triggering this sort of reaction. And what I want to stress to you is that eating disorders, I guess, are kind of characterized. They're characterized by the following. Okay, so one or all of the following. Of course, they tend to be separate, but let's have a look at them. So the first one could be eating too much. Okay, so an individual might eat too much, and we're going to talk in a moment about binge eating disorder and some other disorders that might include overeating. Somebody or an eating disorder might be characterized by eating too little, and of course we're going to talk about anorexia nervosa in a few moments' time, which that's the primary symptom, I guess, of or characteristic of that condition. And finally, people with eating disorders will spend a lot of time worrying about body weight and shape. Now, I think we've got to sort of draw a line here, because I think everybody worries a little bit about body weight and shape to some degree. I've been doing tutorials recently where we've been talking about obesity or BMI. It's normal to have an awareness of yourself. Oh, I wish this was different. I wish that was different. There's a certain normality to that, okay? Although we very much encourage everyone to accept themselves for who they are. What we're talking about here is a more extreme version, continuous, chronic notion of actually worrying about what you look like and your appearance or your weight. Okay, so it's an unbalanced way of thinking about that. And perhaps what is most concerning, because of the nature of who's going to take this tutorial itself, is that eating disorders are most common between 13 and 17 years old. Okay, between 13 to 17 years old. So the people that are taking this tutorial, you are, I guess, in that area, that age where an eating disorder is the most likely to occur around you. You're most likely to experience it, whether it's with a friend or someone you're aware of, or even yourself. You're in that genre of age where this might happen. So hence us including it in this course, because you know what? We think it's important. Now, I want to suggest to you that there are three main disorders, three main types. Okay, now there are others, I should stress that, but these are the three main types. I'm going to talk to you here about anorexia nervosa. In fact, let me do that straight away, and I'll name the others as we go forward. So what is this? Someone who's anorexic, they will be very controlling of weight. Okay, so that, and everyone does that to an extent, right? You want to control your body weight, but this is a very, very extreme version. And the way a person will do this, they'll do it by not eating enough. So this involves experiences of self-starvation. So not eating enough, and it can be both of these things, or exercising too much. And I'll come to the symptoms of these conditions in a few moments' time. Okay, but that's what we understand by anorexia. And remember, this is not feeling, I'd like to lose a pound or two, or I feel a bit, I've been on holiday and I've eaten a bit too much, I want to eat a bit less the next few days. That's not what we're talking about here. We are talking about a chronic tendency to need to control one's weight by not eating enough, and it's a serious mental health condition. I also want to introduce you to the notion of bulimia. Almost said that wrong. Bulimia. So this is a different type of condition. This is where somebody loses control. It's losing control over how much you eat. Okay, so it has elements of elements of sort of binging. And then what this person will do is they will take drastic action to not put on weight. So this person may eat a large quantity of food in one go. I'm only giving one example, by the way. And then they might, for example, take laxatives or make themselves vomit because they don't want that food to affect their weight. Now, that is a condition called bulimia. And I want to be clear here. This is not eating something, feeling a bit sickly because you've had a bit too much chocolate cake and then needing to be sick and organically being sick. No, this is forcing yourself to be sick or taking laxatives. Laxatives are tablets that will effectively flush through your digestive system and push everything out your bottom, basically. And they can assist in passing food without them being kind of processed and digested. Now, the final or the third condition we're going to have a look at is what, there's an I in there, by the way, is what we're going to call binge eating disorder, okay, or BED, okay, binge eating disorder. And this is probably the eating disorder which is talked about the least. So this is characterized by eating large quantities of food. And this is where it differs from bulimia. Large quantities of food until you feel uncomfortably full. Until uncomfortably full. Okay, so someone's going to eat so much that they're going to become really, really overfull. That's what we're talking about. So these three conditions are things that we should have a broad awareness of, and we should be sort of aware, and just in case that's something that we're experiencing or people around us experiencing. Now, what I want to do here is I want to talk about symptoms of disorders, of eating disorders. Now, I should stress there's some fairly serious things we're going to talk about here. So first things first, just on a practical level, a person experiencing an eating disorder is going to spend a lot of time worrying, and that worrying is targeted at body weight and shape. So someone who is overly concerned about their body weight or shape, it's possible, certainly not by certain, but it's possible they might be experiencing an eating disorder. This person might avoid social situations with food. So you and your friends go out for dinner and somebody doesn't want to be there but comes along at the end to do something different after the food's been eaten. Again, as a one-off, it's nothing. It's completely normal human behaviour. But as a tendency and ongoing over and over again behaviour, it might be something that is a little bit of a worry. This person or a symptom of eating disorder is eating very little. Okay, and especially if you see yourself or someone else changing their eating habits all of a sudden, then that's maybe a sign that something's not quite right. So it could be making oneself sick. And this is obviously you might not know about this if it's somebody else, making oneself sick. This is normally something that people will hide. Another example is the use of laxatives, as I mentioned before, basically flushes your digestive system out. This person might be exercising too much, and we're not talking about that sort of healthy exercise of enjoying your PE lessons, going to the gym, taking part in a sports team. We're talking about a fanatical, obsessive needing to exercise and doing too much of it. This person might have very strict food habits. Okay, so you might notice that someone's got very strict and unusual food habits, refusing to eat certain things, not eating in certain situations. And you might also notice that this person has changes in mood. Okay, changes in mood. Or the character seems different. And a couple of examples of that, you might see somebody withdrawn, you might see somebody anxious, or of course a combination of those at different times. Now, I want to go on further here, and I realize this video is a little long, but I want to talk here about warning signs. Warning signs of, I'll just put ED, eating disorders in others. So if you were to notice an eating disorder in somebody else, what might that look like, and what might be sort of symbols of that situation? What are the real indicators? So the first one is quite obvious, especially when it comes to anorexia, and that is dramatic weight loss. We're not talking about being slightly lighter one year than you were the previous year because you've got into distance running. We're talking here about rapid and significant weight loss in a short period of time. Secondly, this person might be lying about food, okay, and certainly about how much food they might have consumed. Again, try not to judge the person for that if you're experiencing it, but try and be compassionate. Thirdly, they might be eating a lot fast. Okay, and what I mean by that is effectively trying to eat as much as possible in one sitting. This would obviously lean more towards that bulimia or binge eating type disorder, but it's something that we should be aware of. This one's an important one, going to the bathroom after eating. Now again, this is not a one-off. If someone goes for a wee because, they've just had their dinner and a glass of milk, that's completely normal, isn't it? Going to the bathroom after eating. But if this becomes a chronic thing and an always thing, or it's a change in behaviour and a noticeable change in behaviour, then you might want to just be aware of what potentially is going on there. Avoiding eating with others is a classic example. Avoiding eating with others is a classic example, and you should look out for it. A couple of others. We also want to think about cutting food into small pieces, cutting up food. But we're not talking about just, the normal sort of thing to get it into your mush. We're talking about, like really cutting it up small, as if, into tiny pieces, sort of trying to get it down bit by bit. Other ones are eating very slowly. Okay, this is a mechanism sometimes people will use so that it doesn't look like they're not eating very much. So you might feel you haven't seen them start or finish their food because you weren't there for the whole of it. And finally, this person might use loose or baggy clothing to sort of conceal the fact that the weight loss has taken place. So these are some things that I would really encourage you to be aware of. I simply want to draw back to the start of the tutorial where we said if you're worried about yourself, your GP is your best port of call. Of course, talk to other people if you're concerned, your parents, your guardians, your teachers, your friends, of course. And if you're worried for someone else, do let them know that you're concerned for them in a compassionate and supportive way, and seek help from a responsible adult, potentially a teacher. Some of the teachers at your school are trained and guided to deal with situations such as this and will help you. Thanks.